Well, basically the main risk always is political risk. Africa is not a country, it's 54 different countries, and so each different country has its own risks and its own opportunities. But political risk, above all else, is what can affect private equity investment. Well, clearly the giant of Africa is South Africa, but the region I represent investors in Eastern Africa. It's an area where individual countries have political risk, but as a region, it's making enormous progress in a number of areas. The East African community is encouraging intra-Africa trade. There are various major infrastructure projects. One is known as LAPSET, Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia Transit Corridor, which 9 months ago was perhaps just a pipe dream. It's now a reality, and that could become the largest infrastructure project in Africa. Perhaps the most important thing, it draws in 3 countries, and that means increased trade between the 3, Ethiopia, South Sudan, newly independent, and Kenya. And the prospects for that are very bright and present a number of investment opportunities. Other areas in the region, I'm talking Eastern Africa because that's my area of expertise, railways, Kenya, Uganda, and possibly linking up with Rwanda and Eastern DRC for the mineral wealth there. Tanzania, Uganda railway is a possibility. And perhaps the biggest boost to the region now is the discovery of vast quantities of gas offshore, particularly offshore Mozambique, but offshore Tanzania, and possibly offshore Kenya. And also the possibility of major oil discoveries in northern Kenya and South Ethiopia, having already, and Dar es Salaam or Tanzania, having already discovered major quantities in Uganda. So the mining and oil and gas prospects for the region are enormous. But having said that, already it may surprise many that Kenya is the largest exporter of tea in the world. Most of the tea that people drink in the UK is from Kenya. And it also exports over 1 billion roses a year into the EU, the largest supplier of flowers and roses in particular into the EU. It has a very well regulated and sophisticated financial services sector, which means that's an added attraction for private equity investors. The currency risk, I left the country in '99 when the Kenya shilling was 72 to the dollar. It's now 80, so it's been remarkably stable over the last 12, 13 years. As I said, it has a sophisticated financial services sector, and that's spreading out to Tanzania and Uganda and Rwanda. And that means currency risk can be managed, but also it's very well regulated, and that's a feature that most private equity investors would like to see. It has a very broadly based private sector driven economy, Kenya, manufacturing, tourism, and a whole number of areas, agriculture I mentioned. So as a region, it's one that we're very excited about the prospects for. One caveat in all of that is the political situation in Kenya, which remains absolutely central to the well-being of the region. Well, I was invited as a panelist to contribute what I know about the Eastern Africa side of things. Having just returned from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania and Rwanda, I'm very familiar with the current situation there. So really it's not my job to promote the region, but it's to bring people's attention to the potential of that region. And so I'm hoping, given my knowledge and experience of the region, I used to work there for many years, that I can begin to put Eastern Africa on the map for private equity investment.